Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all very much for making time this morning and joining us on hopefully what will be a very exciting and informative webinar today. Just by way of introduction, my name is Andy Rissick. I'm the International Director for Sable International. I base myself between London, Portugal, and Cape Town, and I'm currently actually in Portugal. So all three of us are sitting in the very country that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be showcasing a really unique investment that we have in Evora that we think is, without a doubt, one of the best 280,000 euro investments today. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. There will be a Q&A session at the end, but I would encourage you to please ask questions as we're going along and my guests are speaking. And then I'm very happy to actually pose those questions. So we try and make it a little bit more of a discussion, slightly informal, rather than, just us presenting to you. So please jump in and ask questions. Sarah will put a little instruction on how to send questions to us. So without further ado, for those of you who don't know who Sable International is, we're a business, we've been around since 1994. So we're well over 25 years old now, amazingly. And as a business, we specialize in helping expats internationalizing themselves, their wealth, their business, and even their families. So we're very well known in the space of citizenship and immigration, which is kind of what we're going to be talking about today. We do a lot of migration to Australia, the UK, New Zealand, Canada. And what has been really interesting is through the investment migration, we've seen a really big increase in interest from South Africans over the last 10 years of moving to Europe, and Portugal provides a really interesting gateway. We also have a mix of financial service companies. We can help with foreign exchange, international tax considerations when moving abroad or investing abroad, and we can even help with international education. Sable acquired a business last year where we help students study in tertiary institutions, predominantly in the Anglo-Saxon world, but countries like the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. So we really do have a wide range of services, but today we will be drilling in and talking about what we call investment migration, where one gets residency and ultimately citizenship through investment rather than through any ancestry or birthright. So you'll see two other lovely faces on the screen. Today we have with us Eduardo Fonseca and Vicky Rodriguez, both of them very, very long-standing partners of Sable International in Portugal. We've been promoting the Golden Visa in Portugal since it started in October 2012. And I know that we've been working with Vicky since 2013. And then through Vicky, I met Eduardo, and we've been working with his firm since about 2015. And we've done several deals with both of them. So I'd like to welcome both of you. And maybe, Vicky, you can have the honors and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Andy. Well, good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak today. My name is Vicky Rodriguez. I'm a partner at TPA Law Firm. We're based in Lisbon, and we assist clients who are looking to invest in Portugal, both from a corporate as well as an individual perspective, and I head up our private client department. So as you can probably tell from my accent, I was born in South Africa and brought up in South Africa, in Johannesburg, and it's always a pleasure to be able to assist fellow South Africans and their families when they make the decision to apply for the Golden Visa and also invest in Portugal generally. As Andy mentioned, we've been working with Sable for many years now, and we've jointly assisted many South Africans looking to invest in Portugal. We also have several clients who have purchased properties through Eduardo over the years. And so it's an honor to be here today on the stage with Andrew and with Eduardo to speak about this investment opportunity.
Thanks very much, Vicky. Over to you, Ed.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Andy, for the invitation. Good morning, everybody. Vicky, great to be with you once again as well. So I'm Eduardo, not as opposed to Vicky. I am 100% Portuguese, born and raised. I usually say that I live 500 meters from the place where I was born, so didn't went that further in life, but it is what it is. Yeah, 100% Portuguese, family guy, two wonderful kids, and I'm also the founder and CEO of Oustanding Investment Properties, which is a group that is specialized on identifying and developing real estate solutions for golden visa applicants in order to minimize the risks, minimize the headaches, and bring successful and profitable investments to our clients. So we've been doing so since 2014. As Andy and Vicky said, we've been all working together for quite a few years. Thanks to Sable, I have already quite a few South African friends that started as clients. Also thanks to Sable, I know South Africa because I go there often, exactly to meet with friends and clients and some business partners. So very excited to introduce this project today. And again, very thankful for the opportunity, Andy.
It's a pleasure, Eduardo. Thank you. And actually, to your point about Eduardo becoming friends with the clients, I was chatting to a client recently, and he said of all the experiences in Portugal, the part that he's really enjoyed the most has been working with Eduardo on the actual real estate investment side of things. So great partners, great to have you. So just let's get into the sort of the real meaty section of the webinar. What I'm going to do is just to talk a little bit about why we as a company like Portugal, and then Vicky's going to just touch on some salient points of the Golden Visa process. It's good to have Vicky on board today because I think so many people these days are selling Golden Visa investments, and very few people ever concentrate and focus on the realities of what the Golden Visa process actually entails. So I'd encourage you to ask any questions if you're not sure, Vicky, and then we'll drill into the property, and Eduardo will run us through all of that. And then if there are any unanswered questions by the time we get to the end of that, then we'll jump into a Q&A. So just a little bit about Portugal. It is a democracy. It comes from a very strong sort of socialist background and very liberal society. Portugal is quite well renowned for being bureaucratic, but you know, it is an amazing place when you come and live here. It's very peaceful. You never feel threatened in Portugal. People are very friendly, and as a nation, the Portuguese are very inclusive and progressive. So very proud of their involvement in the EU as well. And really since 2008, the Portuguese have been on a strong mission after the global financial crisis and their bailout, which happened 4 years later in 2012, to really attract foreign direct investment into the country. And I can tell you, having done business here for close on 10 years now, the difference in Portugal from 10 years ago today is just incredible. Not only in the value of real estate, but actually the way the country looks, and all the initiatives outside just the Golden Visa. You've got all sorts of tax incentives that have attracted some very interesting people. They're very, very keen on attracting tech investment and these so-called digital nomads. And these things really do work well because it's a great place to come and live if you can work remotely. I think to everyone's interest, certainly sitting on this webinar, is it's ranked as the third most peaceful country in the world. You know, like all countries, you may find a pickpocketer or two, but it really is very safe and you feel very unthreatened. And I think that's something that most people who come into these type of webinars are actually really looking for. It's got a good legal system, and Vicky can talk a little bit more about that and how that works. And then it has a fantastic infrastructure. It's one of the older members of the EU. You can see the benefits that Portugal has derived from being part of the EU. You know, the motorway infrastructure, the bridges, the rivers, the airports, the healthcare. These are all things that a lot of people who look to invest in Portugal are seeing declining in their countries of origin. So I think it's important to understand that. And also, Portugal has, as I said, I mean, I've spoken about that. They've done a lot to try and attract investment. What's interesting here, that second statistic where the IMF forecast a 4% growth for 2022. Recently, I heard a figure of between 6 and 7%, so they're actually ahead. We're coming into the sort of latter part of the year already. But things are really positive in Portugal. And, we certainly see it here in the real estate investment and other investments that are coming into the country. So I think that's enough from me. Vicky, I'm going to ask you maybe if you could just give us a bit of background and history on the Golden Visa Programme.
Okay, thank you, Andy. So I'm sure many of you will be familiar with the Golden Visa, and I won't bore you with the fine details today because it's more about the investment rather than the legals. But what I will do is provide a brief summary of what it is and what the requirements in general are. So going back in 2012, the Portuguese government approved legislation that created the Golden Visa, and their aim, as Andy indicated, was to attract foreign investment into Portugal as a means of recovery for our economy, and it worked. So in essence, it's a residency program that provides you with legal residency as long as you make a qualifying investment. It also enables you to travel visa-free throughout the Schengen countries. So the main benefit in our view of the Golden Visa is its flexibility, because although it entitles you to live, to work, and to study in Portugal, if you want to, you only need to spend on average 7 days a year in the country. So this means that you can retain your residency in South Africa, for example, and visit Portugal for a week a year and still have a valid legal residency permit in Portugal. After you have 5 years of legal residency under your belt, you can then apply for Portuguese citizenship, provided that you comply with the remaining requirements. And one of these requirements is a Portuguese language test. So Sable will always advise clients, as we do, that right from the start, you should start learning Portuguese and not leave it until the 5th year, so that you don't get to the stage and then not be able to pass the Portuguese language test. So I think in the next slide, what we have, Andy, are the statistics regarding the Golden Visa.
Yeah, so I can just talk a little bit about that. I think direct investment into real estate, they've seen over 6 billion. By the way, these statistics are only accurate as of November last year. There haven't been any updated figures, but certainly if our numbers are anything to judge by, we've seen a lot of investment in the last 6 to 7 months. That is literally direct investment. But if you think that every investor that comes to Portugal, they come in here, they're spending money in hotels, they're spending money in restaurants. So, and a lot of our investors, we've got over 300 investors who've worked through Sable International. And we haven't seen a huge trend of people moving here, but what we have seen is people developing other sort of links, and we've seen clients investing in further property investments, et cetera, et cetera. We are starting to see more people actually looking at moving over now. But yeah, so we including dependents, have done over 780 applications. But Portugal as a whole, I mean, it's well over 10,000 total investors now. And that excludes their dependents. So in other words, spouse and dependent children. Portuguese citizenship. I got a phone call from a client yesterday, very excited to tell me he actually got his passport. So this program is real. But he said to me, Andy, you are definitely not buying a passport here. You have to earn that passport. So as Vicky said, the language test, it is Portuguese. It's a basic test, but it's really worth getting on and learning how it works. Yeah, so that's just a little bit on statistics. And I think also key to mention is that of all the clients that we've ever helped invest, we've had 100% success rate in terms of their qualification. So Vicky, maybe you want to just chat a little bit about some of the requirements and key points and anything around that.
Okay, so in terms of the requirements to apply for the Golden Visa, and these are basically listed in the slide, as you can see. You'll require a valid passport. You need a clean criminal record. And in terms of the documentation, they're very time sensitive, the documents. So for example, your police clearance certificate is only valid for 3 months. And it's essential, and Sable provides this service, that the documents are obtained in a timely fashion. So that's always an important point to point out to clients. You'll also need to provide proof of your investment. What this means is that you can only apply for the Golden Visa once you have your investment concluded. And when you renew your Golden Visa, so the first card is issued for a period of 2 years, and then you have 2 more renewals for 2 years validity as well. You have to prove to the authorities that you've spent the minimum amount of days in the country. So it's very important that you keep receipts, keep your boarding passes to show that you have effectively been in Portugal for those minimum amount of days. Another important point we have here is that there's no limit for direct family members. So the main investor with one single investment can bring on board their family to also come on the Golden Visa. From a tax perspective, because you're only spending on average 7 days per year in Portugal, you'll remain non-resident for tax purposes. And what this means is that you do not need to declare your worldwide income in Portugal, but only the income that you effectively receive from Portuguese sources. So if you rent out your property, for example, you'll have to declare the rental income you've received, but that's the only income you'll declare if you're non-resident for tax purposes. So you probably may have heard that there were changes recently to the Golden Visa legislation that came into effect in January this year. And these changes were aimed mostly at trying to control the increase in property prices in residential property in the main cities and along the coasts. So investments in residential property in these areas no longer qualify for the Golden Visa. However, the development that we'll be discussing today is located in a low density area and isn't affected by these changes. So residential property and other type of property in Evora will still continue to qualify. You'll see also on the slide that there are no interviews. So when you come to Portugal to do your biometrics, all you physically do is your biometrics. So your solicitors will organize the documentation and hand this in on your behalf. And all you need to do is take a photo, fingerprints, and sign. So there are no questions asked. There's no interview with the authorities. So the investment that Eduard's going to speak about today is the €350,000 property investment option. This means that if you buy a property that's older than 30 years or located in an urban regeneration area and you refurbish it, the total amount of the property plus the works should be €350,000. But because Evora is considered a low density area, there's a 20% discount on this investment. And so you only need to invest €280,000. So those are the requirements of the Golden Visa in a nutshell. And I'll pass the presentation on to Eduard so that he can speak about the investment. And as Andy said, if you have any questions, legal or otherwise, we can then reply at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Eduardo, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Andy. As Vicky mentioned, this project is a project that was thought to be an eligible project for the 280K investment option. And I'll talk a little bit about Evora, the location as well. I'll explain about the property as it is and how we want it to be. And then we'll go to the really investment, the financial part of the investment. Because sometimes when we talk about low density, we think it's the opposite thing that we want to hear when we're talking about real estate, but it's not so much like that in Evora. So this is just a glimpse of how we want the property to be. Talking about the property, we acquired this property in April last year. We've been working in this project since then, and we introduced this to the market about 2 weeks ago. It took this time because we had to really have our team thinking about what we can do with this property to respect the architecture, but to make it modern, comfortable, and to make it a very nice place for people to stay in Evora in a way that is like their own home when they're staying in Evora. So it has been our architects, and we have a team of 2 different architects working on this, some on the most creative side, other on the more bureaucratic side, dealing with the municipality and we have the team of engineers working on all the specialities. So although it looks like an old building, the outcome will be a brand new building. The property itself, it's a property that it's right in the city center of Evora. It's from the 1920s. It's a property that was designed by a very famous Portuguese architect. His name is Raul Lino. He's one of the best Portuguese architects in the first half of the 20th century. And you can see that. You can see that good architecture is not just from now. This property could be designed nowadays because the layout, the sunlight, the materials, the quality, the condition of the property as it is, it's spectacular. I mean, the property is in a livable condition. People can live there as it is. And so we are super excited on bringing this project to the market in a way to be affordable to you. So it's the most affordable way to apply to the Golden Visa. It's safe because you are investing in real estate. It's easy because we worked documentation contracts with Vicky and the team, so that when you go to the contract stage, everything is already checked and in order to make sure that the property do qualify for the Golden Visa. But as in all our projects, we're very concerned that you, as our clients, would make money with the property, and that comes from the rent and that you get along the years. And also in the future, if you want to sell the asset, you can have some nice profit as capital gains when you sell the property. That is kind of our principle. And one thing that's very important on the make it easy part of this is that we at Oustanding Investment Properties, we take a lot of risks of the project so that you don't have those risks or those headaches. So, of course, it's a refurbishment project. There will be architects, engineers, contractors, refurbishment involved, dealing with the municipality, dealing with permits, with approvals, with inspections. We do all that. The project, of course, is approved. Otherwise, we would not be bringing it to the market. But that's what we've been doing since we start our business in 2014. In Evora, just as an highlight, we already manage over 40 properties, and about 80% of our clients in Evora are actually South African.
Yeah, just so, can I jump in there, Eduardo? I think it's probably a good time to mention now that many of you will be aware that there was that private equity category, which still exists. That used to be pitched at 350,000 euros, and that was also a change that happened at the end of last year, where your minimum investment into a private equity fund went from 350 to 500,000. So, you know, that really just takes quite a lot of people out of the market. And to find something now around the 350 or 280,000 in the case of a low density area, it has to be real estate. And we get requests from developers all the time to, you know, work with them, help them launch their projects. I've looked at probably 20 projects since I've been here for the last 3 months. There's a lot of really scary stuff in the market. And I think what's important to mention here, a bit of context with Eduardo, the reason that we're working on and have been working with him, I went and looked at this project last August or July, I think it was, when I met with Eduardo, and we said, no, we love it. Let's do this. Is we simply not finding good 280,000 investments at the moment because everyone's jumping in, and finding good stock is really difficult. So I think that's key. And Eduardo focuses on this particular market, which has good fundamentals. And this is like all his other projects. I think we've got in excess of 35 investors that have invested with you. Yeah, it's good. Sorry, Eduardo. And talk about the castle walls in Evora as well. I think that's important.
Yeah. So I was getting to that to talk about Evora. What's about Evora? Why are we doing projects in Evora since 2018? And it's basically because we ran away from Porto and Lisbon around that time, because honestly, we already felt the prices in those locations were too expensive for a sustainable real estate market. We look other locations where that it makes sense to invest. And Evora is one of the 18 district capitals in Portugal. It's a town that's about 1 hour, 10 minutes from Lisbon, southeast of Lisbon, on the way to Spain. It's actually halfway between Lisbon and the Spanish border. Due to its location, it's also where the future high-speed train between Lisbon and Madrid will go for, and the construction already started, although it's a long project. Apart from that, it's an historical town. So Evora, it's a UNESCO World Heritage, especially the city center that is surrounded by a castle wall. You have Roman temples there, so the city has heritage since century 2, and that makes it a very touristic spot, and it has been for many years, and more. I would say up to 10 years ago, Portuguese and Spanish would be the tourists that you'd find in Evora. Now you find tourists from all nationalities. Andy and I were yesterday in Evora, and he could saw that around us on the restaurant there were multiple nationalities and a lot of tourists. So tourism is a big thing in Evora. Apart from that, the university, it's the second oldest university in Portugal after Coimbra, and it has about 10,000 students attending the university every year, and most of them looking for accommodation. This creates, of course, some good opportunities in terms of real estate. But what is really special in the last decade was some major investments that were set up in Evora, like an Embraer airplane factory, a Siemens solar park, Tyco Electronics, and other factories that are attracting a lot of young professionals, mostly engineers, into town. And it's one of the district capitals in Portugal that it's growing with its own life, not like being, for example, a dormitory place for people that work in Lisbon. So it is surrounded by beautiful and really big agricultural fields with olive groves, vineyards, big cork estates. And thanks to that big portion of land around Evora, it qualifies as low density, because the town itself, it's low density. But when we go to the statistics and the statistical region, if we split the population of Evora by the square kilometers around Evora, there's so many land around that helps to qualify. The market in terms of real estate, it's very reasonable. The prices are average and accessible to average Portuguese families. So the prices are increasing since 2018 until now. Prices has been growing faster than what we anticipated. So our clients that bought in the last few years are happier than the expectation that we created to them, but they're still affordable. Definitely the last year, due to this change in regulation that Vicky mentioned with Lisbon, Porto, and the coastal areas being out of the Golden Visa, there's a lot of people looking for Evora as an investment for the Golden Visa purpose, and that is pushing prices up as well. Because of all that, we think this project is a project that fits all the cautionary measures that you have when you're doing a real estate investment, in terms of the price, in terms of the project, the returns that you can expect, and the future, and even the exit strategy. We can approach that in a bit. When compared to other solutions that are in the market, because the market is very scarce of these 280 solutions, and then you see some shady options in the market that are definitely not what we intend to bring to our clients. This is a picture of the Roman temple in Evora, which is actually the icon of Evora, the Diana's temple. And about the property. So the property, I know most of the properties in Evora and in the region. It's definitely, if not the most beautiful property in Evora, it's one of the most beautiful properties. Pictures and videos don't really make justice to the property. When you enter there, the entrance all alone is quite spectacular. It's almost majestuous. The house is beautiful and it is in a beautiful condition. We're going to change the property and the project in order to accommodate 9 en-suite bedrooms and 6 studios. By studios, we mean some accommodation units where you have a bedroom, a living room, a kitchenette, of course, a bathroom. So they are slightly bigger bedrooms that are good to accommodate a family of 4, for example. It's facing 3 different streets. The main street or the entrance is by Cicioso Street, and that's the name. That's where comes the name of the project. Cicioso, by the way, it's not a very popular Portuguese word, but it means like a whisper, so it brings calmness, tranquility, and that's what we want for the project. And so we thought the name was quite appropriate. That's why we're calling it the Cicioso Boutique Hotel. Build area 1,176 square meters, so it's a really big property, and it's split through a main house, some annexes, and then the garden. And the garden alone, it's 345 square meters. It has ground floor, first floor. The top floor will be not for guests. It will be the technical area. It will be accommodation for staff, and it will be storage, air conditioning units, and so on. And there's also a small basement on one of the studios, which is actually a studio loft with 2 floors, but not a dark basement. It has windows, and you can access the pool in the garden directly from there as well. Another picture of how we envision, and actually not that much different of how it is. Being in the historical city center of Evora, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There's a lot of regulations about what we can do in terms of architecture. This is a classified building. The cultural authorities, of course, check the project. We intend, regardless any regulations, to respect as much as possible the architecture, but at the same time, make it modern and comfortable. All the infrastructures are going to be brand new rooftop, and quite a lot of other features that will add to the existing building. So apart from the suites and the studios, as I mentioned, there will be a swimming pool. Most of the bedrooms and studios are around the garden and the swimming pool with direct access, a lounge area, dining room, tea room, winter garden, the proper garden, the technical floor, as I mentioned. Location, I mean, we're just 2 minutes away from multiple really good restaurants, and 5 minutes walk to the main square in Evora and most of the touristic attractions. It has historical significance because the house, it's classified. The architecture is spectacular, as I mentioned, and we couldn't be happier with the layout and with the overall condition of the property. So this is what we want. By the way, this picture is of the winter garden. It's covered. It's a garden that we can enjoy in the winter as well. Quiet, comfort, privacy, casual, sophisticated atmosphere. We want this to be a premium unit, but we want people to feel comfortable and at ease, not too formal because that's not the way of being in Evora or the region. So it's a more casual atmosphere. So about the investment side, so we open this investment to 20 co-investors. Each investor will invest 280K and will own 1/20 of the property. That investment, 280K, covers everything. So the property as it is and the refurbishment. So it's of the turnkey refurbished and equipped property. There's no hidden cost. If there's some unexpected and unpleasant surprises during the renovation, we will be liable for any extra cost. This is what each investor will pay, and that's it. Once the refurbishment is done, the investors will get a 4% guaranteed return per annum, and this could be 3 years or 5 years. We leave it up to you to choose. We have some previous clients that are going to invest in this project, and they know us for a few years already. They know about our business plan, and they are going for 3 years because after year 4, they can expect a higher return. But of course, we respect more conservative investors, and that's why I give that option for 5 years at 4% per annum as well. So in terms of these returns, the lease of the property, the hotel management, will start in January 2024 after the refurbishment. So the refurbishment will start in January 2023. It will take close to 1 year, a little bit less. If there's any delay, we will start paying the rent regardless of delay on January 2024. So there's no risk in terms of costs for the investment, and there's no risk in terms of the timing. You start getting returns when we say that the hotel should be running. After the initial 3 years or 5 years, 4% guaranteed return, each investor will get 80% of the operational result of the hotel. So the investment will always be in the property. The investors will not invest in the company that will manage the property, which is a company from our group. The risk associated with the business is with ourselves, not with the investors. It's a pure real estate investment, but the rent will be according to the results of that company. According to our business plan, and there's an investment snapshot document that Sable can share with anyone that's interested, so that you understand how we expect the business to grow. But on year 4, we do expect that this 80% of the operational result will mean close to 5.5%, and on year 6, around 6.5%. And of course, we expect it to grow with time. These numbers, I'm available to discuss it with anybody. And I mean, according to our advisors, are actually quite conservative numbers considering the occupancy rate and even the daily rates that we're assuming for the project. A few more pictures of the studios, the ensuite, the pool with the garden, and a picture of the real property as it is with the access to the lounge. So 280K, it's the most affordable way to invest and to apply to the Golden Visa program. It's a real estate investment, so it is safe. You're not investing in a business. You own a property, it's easy because we went through all the details with the contracts and the documents with your lawyers, so everything should be prepared. There's no ongoing costs for your side. The only cost that might apply, and I say might because your accountant can actually ask you exemption from that, it's the annual property tax, which is honestly a small amount as well. And your accountant can ask for this exemption because the property is a classified property and it is within the historical city center of Evora. And it is profitable. I mean, of course, Eurozone from the last 6 months is much different from the last 10 years. And we know that inflation nowadays, at least in the last few months, has been surprisingly high. But considering what Eurozone and the Euro banks have been paying, 4% per annum, and then the possibility to 5.5, 6.5, and so on, is a very good return. And if you put on top of that the future resale of the property, which would be the exit strategy, you can really have a profitable investment. But you also fit to keep your share in the property and just get the hotel revenue year after year. So just to approach a little bit the exit strategy, this is because you own a share of the property, you'll be on the land registry document. It can be inherited by your children. So regardless you own 1/20 or 100% of the property, you have the same rights. And you have the right to sell it. You have the right to sell your share to another investor that looks for this kind of investment instead of putting the money in the bank. Another very interesting exit strategy in 6, 7, 8 years is to introduce the hotel as a whole to an investment fund or a family office. There's huge demand from these institutions for this kind of project. A hotel actually was sold about 1 year ago in the Evora region. So that's a real possibility. And according to our valuation, after year 6, the valuation of the property should be between 8.5 to 9 million. So there's a good capital gain to be made here. Again, if you want to maintain your share in the property, you're free to do so. Timeline. So we introduced a project about 2 weeks ago. We are fortunate to have already 8 interested investors. It's open up to 20, but we have this sales timing until December 2022. Until then, of course, the contracts and the title deeds will be all signed so that on January 2023, we can start the construction. It should take 1 year, and on January 2024, you start getting the rent return from the hotel. One important detail, so that you have assurance from our side, the first year of the rental, which is paid always annually and upfront. So on January 2024, you get 1 year of rent for 2024. January 2025, you have another year of rent, and so on. But this year, so November, December, when the title deed is signed, right after the title deed, one of the contracts that we will sign with you, it's a promissory lease contract, so that you are have assurance that our company will comply with this return. And on that promissory lease contract, we will pay you upfront the entire 2024 year. So you get this year the rent for January 2024. We do this not just for your security, but also because we know the demands of the Golden Visa program, and we know that cash flow wise, this money will be helpful for you to cover other expenses. I mean, legal expenses, the immigration authorities fees, the cost of the program, and so this way you have some money back right away instead of waiting for 2024. Another couple of pictures. So the one on the right, it's the entrance hall, the one that I say it's quite majestic when you enter there, because it's a really high ceiling, it's spacious, the materials, the marble, the wood, it's everything in a brilliant condition. It's definitely a great invitation room for when you enter the building. Golden Visa wise, like on all our projects, we are very careful about being sure that the property match the Golden Visa criteria. So the property, to match the Golden Visa criteria, it has to comply with one of 2 criteria. One is being located in an urban rehabilitation area, which it is, in the historical city center of Evora, again, UNESCO World Heritage location. The other criteria is if the property is 30 years old or older. In this case, it also is. So it complies with the 2 criteria. Another formality that is necessary for you to apply to the visa is that you will need to have a works contract with a local contractor. So the 280K are actually 260 for the property and 20K as a works contract that you'll sign with our contractor, again, just to comply with the Golden Visa program. 20 investors, as I mentioned, we have already 8 investors seriously interested. We will expect to start signing the first contracts this month. And again, we're going ahead with the project, regardless to have the investors or not. Fortunately, the feedback has been amazing on the last couple of weeks, both from old clients and new clients. So we really believe we will achieve this goal quite rapidly. Andy, I think I touched most of the topics about the property. Is there any question you want to ask, or is some information you want to add? Because sometimes I forget things.
No, I think you've covered it really well. We've got quite a few questions that have come in.
If you allow me, just the detail on this slide, because I did forget some things.
Yes.
The investors are welcome to stay for free, of course, at the hotel 1 week per annum. This week could be passed to another year, so you can actually spend 14 days every 2 years. We cannot allow you to accumulate more than the 2 years, because then we really need to manage the hotel to pay you then the rent to you. But yeah, so 1 week per annum or 2 weeks every 2 years, investors are welcome to stay at the hotel for free.
Yeah, that's nice. So as you all know, you've got to spend a minimum of 7 days per year. But when you get issued your Golden Visa cards, they're actually valid for 2 years. So you could actually go and do a 2-week stay. And at the end of that renewal period, that would also qualify. So that's a nice perk. Yeah, I think you've covered it really well. I think we should maybe look at doing some Q&A. And then also just to mention, ladies and gentlemen, that what we're going to do once we finish the Q&A, we're going to play a short video, which is 4 minutes long. So we'll finish off and then we'll play the video, and you won't have a chance to speak to us again after the video. So please, if you've got any questions, even if you think it might be a dumb question, put it there. Nobody else can see it. And if it's very dumb, I won't answer it. But yeah, let's jump into the Q&A if we can. I've just got to scroll down. There were a few people who had sound problems in the early part of the webinar. I hope you've sorted that out, that everybody did get to hear. If you didn't hear all the presenters, then you will get a recorded copy of the webinar anyway. So look, here's a question coming in from Alexia, and I think this is probably pointed a little bit more at you and I, Vicky, is just talking about the delays in the Golden Visa. I think that's pretty well sort of covered in the media these days. You want to just talk a little bit about the delays and what's caused them?
Yes, sure. I think the main reason for the delays, and I hope you can hear me now, was due to COVID. So because of COVID, the offices were closed over a number of months, safe offices, and then they reduced the number of appointments that were available. So it has impacted the renewals more than the initial applications. What CEF has done to try catch up with this backlog is for the new renewals, what they do is they notify the attorneys and the clients to book an appointment to come to Portugal. And in that way, they've caught up on the backlog until, I think it's the third quarter of 2021 at the moment. And in addition, at the beginning of this year, because of the change of legislation, they weren't accepting new applications until the changes had been issued in a regulation from the government. So there is a backlog that they're still working on. It's impacted more the renewals, as I say, rather than the new applications. But I do think that you do need to go into this program and know that you'll only get your first residency card probably in about a year and a half's time.
Yeah, that's thanks, Vicky. Alexia, yeah, a good question. Look, we've seen sort of over the last 10 years, we've had sort of periods where there have been delays, and they will generally sort of clean out the backlog. There's always a bit of a delay. We say worst case scenario at the moment, probably expect 18 months, but we definitely are seeing an improvement. The frustration, I think, that's coming a lot in the marketplace is from clients who waiting for renewals, as Vicky said. But the important thing to note as well is that if there's a delay on your renewal card, provided you've received your first card, that's when the 5 years starts ticking towards your permanent residence, or when you're actually then eligible to apply for citizenship. So the real annoying wait is that initial one. But it is something that the authorities and the government are all very well aware of. And we're hoping to see a good improvement. The Portuguese have just come off a nice hot European summer. So we've actually had some activity throughout the summer months, but we're hoping that'll improve. So hopefully that answers your question. A question from Leanne, is this a hotel the only investment project for Golden Visa in Evora, or do other residential houses in the town also contribute towards Golden Visa? Evora, I think that's a question for you.
Yeah, definitely. In Evora, there's no limitations. So with the change in the law last January, nothing affected Evora as it was before. So in Evora, you can buy residential properties. You can buy a farm if you want. So there's no limitation on the type of property that you buy to the Golden Visa purpose. Most of the properties we've done in Evora are residential. It's a market that is facing huge scarcity of properties because the smaller units for a standalone property for one investor, the demand is so high that the prices are not reasonable. I can tell you that if we do the math on this hotel project, excluding the hotel business of the investment, the property alone that you're buying and for what you're paying for a turnkey property, completely equipped, really nice interior design and so on. You're paying 3,700 per square meter, while we can see properties in Evora being asked and sold at 4,000 euros per square meter before any renovation. And these are smaller units, of course. So participating on a larger scale project like this one do give you that extra value, because there's not so many buyers for big properties as there are for the smaller properties.
Yeah, and that's a valid point. Eduardo and I walked around the town yesterday. We had a look at about 3 or 4 of our clients' properties, some of them just completed, and others under construction. But as Eduardo said, you know, they're guys who selling unrefurbished properties into the market at more than what this will complete at per square meter. And that's really the metric that one has to look at. And I think just to that question as well, is that what's an important thing on the disposal of the asset here? If all the owners decide in 10 years' time, once everybody's achieved their objective of getting Portuguese citizenship, you can either hang on to it and let the operator continue paying you a good rental income, or you could all decide to sell it. In 10 years' time, if you don't get more than 3,800 or whatever euros it is a square meter, I would be absolutely surprised if you look at just the way the cost of buildings going up. And this is one of the few sort of a joint investment project where you actually will get 100% of the capital gain as an investor. Many others don't offer any gain or any return. The 280 just becomes an absolute vehicle to get a passport, which is fantastic in that you might know that there's a definite clear exit at the end, like a guaranteed buyback. And that's very important for some people. But here, it's really about the investment. And my advice is, if you're a serious investor, this is a long-term thing. I mean, from start to finish to get your passport, you're looking at 6, 7, 8 years. So by then, you'll have a really good idea whether you want to dispose of the asset or not. Eduardo, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on that.
Yes, there's a few questions here that I think are quite relevant. Like, for example, how is the income guaranteed? Well, first of all, the income has a form of a lease contract. Who is assuring that lease? It's our company. Our company is very easy to check. We have an amazing risk rating from independent firms here in Portugal. But we have open books, so we're easy to provide any information to your lawyers. When we started planning this project, I went as far as suggesting to Andy and some other business partners we discussed that we would be happy to offer a real bank guarantee for the lease. The only impact is that bank guarantees have a cost. Instead of 4%, what we could pay is 3.5%. And everybody that knows us says, look, with the reputation and the track record that you have, give that extra percent to the clients. And that's what we're doing. So again, we have ourselves, and we're easy to be checked as a reliable promoter and a reliable tenant in this case. Another important thing, which is important to clarify, between the guaranteed 4% during 3 years or 5 years, and then plus the kind of a management return or the 80% of the operational profit, we are giving you a 10 years contract in terms of being a tenant on your property. So every decision related to the hotel business, it's our responsibility. It will be ourselves dealing with it. We don't need to discuss with you or with the 20 co-investors about the hotel business itself. So the 20 co-investors eventually have to be in agreement if in the future everybody decides to sell the building at once. But what we really want is that each investor to be free from the beginning, to know that if they want to keep their share in perpetually, they can keep it and just have the return from the hotel. Okay, and there is a market for individual investors looking for this kind of smaller ticket investments in hotels to who you can resell your share in the future. Andy, any other question?
Yeah, I think what would be good. I've seen a couple of questions here. Just talking to your experience in the sort of the hospitality game and who you have on your team.
Okay, so being completely frank, it is the first hotel that we're going to manage. We were like that. Our clients knows that. Vicky knows that. Andy knows. So we have no experience on managing a hotel. Like we didn't have experience on managing student accommodation 4 years ago, like we had zero experience managing Airbnb units 5 years ago, and we've been doing that very successfully to the point where now we are reference in town in terms of these solutions for for guests and for students. We are taking as a really important advisor a very experienced and senior person in the hospitality business, and he's the one guiding us with the business plan, with the structure, and with the hotel business. That's also why we give a minimum of 3 years of guaranteed return. If we don't have the hotel performing as we expect on the year 1, year 2, which we'll be learning how to deal with it, of course, that's not a problem for you because you're still getting the 4% rent as promised. What I can tell you is that we are very experienced hotel guests. We travel a lot. We've been in plenty of hotels. We know what we like, and we know what we intend to bring to this unit. It's a 15-unit hotel. It's not a 100-bedroom hotel, and I believe we'll be up to the task like we've been in the past before.
Thank you. And there's a good question here from Alistair. When would the investment need to be paid?
So the way it's going to be, the first thing that's going to be signed, it's a promissory contract. That is a key contract in the entire process, because that promissory contract has as an annex the works contract, the promissory lease contract, the lease contract. So everything that's going to be signed further ahead, you'll have access right away. On that promissory contract, 30% of the 260 will be paid, and then the title deed, so the remaining 230 for the property, we expect to sign it in November, eventually December. Right after the property title deed, then there's the 20K to be paid to the contractor. So that should be in December, maximum January, which is when the construction starts. One important thing, the construction cost. So if we have 20 investors at 20K paying to the contractor, that will total 400. Of course, that's not the construction cost. The construction cost will be more than double that. The remaining amount is paid by our company to the contractor. It's a contractor with who we work for many years and works actually exclusively for us. And we do this way so that there's no, imagine that out of the 20 investors, someone has a bit of delay on the payment, and that might lead to delays on getting materials and even the progress of the works. So everything related to the cash flow of the project will be controlled by ourselves, and we'll be paying to the contractor. We have our engineers checking the works every week. So we have our team, like we've been doing in other projects, in order to assure that we do things on time, because if we don't deliver on time, it will be our penalty, because you'll start getting the rent on January 2024.
Great, thanks. There's a question here. It looks like a bit of a tax question. About what would the tax liability be if you live outside Portugal and you're still earning in a foreign country, e.g. the UAE? Question regarding 5 years completed and after the 5 years. Jaco, that I mean, you're treated as a non-resident taxpayer in Portugal, so you would only pay a withholding tax on the income that you derive from this project whilst you're living outside of Portugal. So any earnings that you have from outside Portugal whilst you're living in the UAE or wherever you are, has absolutely no bearing on your Portuguese tax situation. I hope that answers the question. And then Tyler asked a question about providing tourism and property sales and value stats for the area. I think that's something we can revert to you after the webinar, Tyler. It is a good question. I mean, anecdotally, if you walk around there, you can just see the place is teeming with tourists, but there will be stats that I'm sure, Eduardo, you'll have. But maybe we should set up a call directly and you can have a chat with Eduardo on that.
Okay.
Let's see if there are any other questions, because we've been going for an hour now, so we probably need to wrap up. What I would like to say is all the questions that have been asked, we will certainly contact you directly and answer all of those questions. Just one quick question, Eduardo, how are the other properties that you are managing returning in terms of return on investment for your clients?
Okay, so on all our projects, we offer this kind of guarantee, which is a fixed rent, and then we are in charge of getting tenants and dealing with tenants, and we're allowed to subletting the property. So no utility costs, no ongoing costs for the investment. Investors that invested in 2018, 19, some of them managed to get 5% and even more because the property prices were much affordable then. And since then, the property prices have been growing. The rents are also growing, but not as fast as the property prices. So basically what I'm saying is that the yields are slightly lower nowadays than what they were 3, 4, or 4 years ago. Some of our projects this year, let's say a 2-bedroom apartment for Airbnb or student accommodation, they are delivering around 3 to 3.5%. Older projects are the maximum that we managed to deliver in one project was 7% on a commercial unit. Impossible to find on that kind of location. Everybody's looking for those kind of units. But on average, it's 4 to 5%. That's what the previous projects have been delivering. The latest ones, not so much.
Great. Thanks very much, Eduardo. I think what we need to do is we need to wrap up. I think if I could ask you, Vicky, first, maybe just to give your sort of maybe a little closing comment before we go into the video, and maybe just also address the need to have a will in Portugal and succession planning.
I think that's very important. Once you have an asset in Portugal, we always advise clients to execute a separate Portuguese will to deal with that asset because it safeguards you in the event of your death. And you are able to choose South African law to apply to your succession. This has no impact on taxation, but it does allow you to dispose of your assets as you wish. And in terms of tax, Portugal is a very favorable jurisdiction because we don't have inheritance tax. We have stamp duty at a fixed rate of 10% for transfers on death, but there's an exemption for transfers between spouses and between parents and children and grandparents, so along the linear. So our advice is always, once you have your investment and you come to Portugal to do your biometrics, we can get you an appointment at a notary and do your Portuguese will, just to deal with your Portuguese assets, and then you can put that aside and rest assured that if something happens to you, your family is looked after. So if there are any questions, any queries, as you said, Andy, we'll also be happy to answer them. And thank you for everybody's time, and to you and to Edward for being our co-host.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Thanks very much. And Eduardo, I don't know if you've got something you want to say before I'll then close off and we'll go into and watch a movie for 4 minutes.
Look, so this last question I'd like to address as well about the guaranteed buybacks, which are options that you can find in other projects in the market. Since the beginning, since ever, we are against this kind of policies. That is completely playing with the market. And honestly, what we aim is to deliver a product that our clients can sell in the future and make money. And we've been doing so since 2014 when we set up the company. We've had some really nice cases of clients that had to 2 years after the investment in Evora, do an independent appraisal of the property, and they find out that the property is already worth 20% more. Of course, it will not continue to grow at 10% per annum, but there's room for capital growth in Evora, and especially for hotel business, as if it performs as we expect and as we are planning. I can only say and that this is one of our most exciting projects, and we can't wait to really host you there in 2024 once the hotel is operating. You're all invited, Andy and Vicky, of course, and your team, because
I think we might fill it up on that first night.
Yeah, it will be a unique place in Evora for sure. And thank you so much for the invitation once again, Vicky. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, absolute pleasure having you as well. Thanks, Eduardo. Johannes, you've asked some very good questions about that sort of the buyback. I think what I'd like to do is to suggest that we engage directly and maybe have a video call with Eduardo on that. I think it would be interesting. Yes, Evora. We had a client who came over to make an investment a couple of weeks ago, and they were dead set on going to Evora. They are not going to Evora. They were going to look at the Algarve, and they were looking at some other projects. They've ended up going for Evora. So it really is, it's not a known quantity to people who don't know Portugal, because it's not Lisbon, it's not Porto. But I think what is really key here, and the approach that Sable takes, and we really do try and work to this kind of mantra, is, you know, we know that everybody's doing this for Golden Visa, but it's, you know, you're buying from a currency that's probably a little bit weaker than the euro, and you need to look at this as part of your investment strategy if you can. And I really do think that all the stuff that Eduardo has done in the past, and most certainly this project, will deliver as a good investment. It's a good hedging strategy. You know, it's a Eurozone asset. And if you look at what underpins Evora in terms of all the other stuff that's driving demand in the real estate, as well as tourism, I mean, this is out and out a tourism asset. I think it's going to do well, but obviously we don't have a crystal ball. But at 280,000 euros, I would say arguably this is probably about the most attractive investment in order to get a Golden Visa. So I think we'll leave it there before I close off. And once again, just to thank Vicky and Eduardo, thank you so much. And thanks very much to all of you, more importantly, for actually taking over an hour out of your day. And it's a big decision to go ahead and look at investing offshore. Investing for a residency and possibly a passport adds sort of further complication. So really make sure that you seek advice, ask all those questions, and we're all available whenever you need to chat to us. And good luck with your decisions, and please reach out to Sarah. We can set up meetings to discuss a way forward. So Sarah, I'd ask you if you could maybe now get rid of our mug shots off the screen and let's play. And I'd urge you to stay on and watch. It's only a 4-minute video, but it'll give you a really good feeling of what the hotel would look like. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.